once you learn the trick, and I'm going to beat it into your head, you will be able to take rocks like this and reduce them if you follow the simple techniques that I'm going to be teaching you in this video, okay? How to stop turning all of your rock into gravel. This is probably going to be one of the most influential videos for beginner nappers. And since I believe that this video is going to have so much information for you, kind of neatly packaged into easy answers, I ask that you also have patience and sit through the video so you actually get all the information. I'm going to start off by talking about a couple different rock types and shapes, and then we'll go into actually working the rock a little bit better, and I'll give you a lot of really easy answers as to how to just stop destroying rock and start actually making stuff with it. So make sure that you are hanging through it, or else you're going to end up missing a whole bunch of these other key things, and you're going to come back later and ask and say, well, what about this and this and this? And as I always say in the comments here on YouTube is, it's in the video, you just got to watch it. And then of course, as I typically do in my other napping videos, I tell you guys about the FlintKnapping for Beginners video, especially on these beginner videos. That one is an older video, but the information is really good. It's a long form, you sit down and it is a long video in which I really dive deep into teaching you. You guys probably aren't going to get it all just by watching it once. You're going to want to watch it several times. Then also there's the how to flint knap for beginners, but also how to thin video, and I'll put a thumbnail up on the screen, that one as well. And that's another big question that comes in from folks is I just can't get my points thin. It's like that video is going to help walk you through it. And then this one is going to cover kind of some other stuff that those ones don't in a little bit of a different format. And I kind of think that this is a prequel to the FlintKnapping for Beginners, and then like 2 stages before the how to thin video. So we're kind of just going all the way backwards to help you guys that are still just pulverizing rock. Okay, let's cover some different rock types and then also the shapes of rock. So this is gonna be really important for you, okay? The easiest rocks to start with are rocks like obsidian, okay? And some people seem to think that they're really hard to work. We'll get into a little bit of that. Heat-treated Keokuk is another really good beginner rock. It's a little bit more difficult than the obsidian. You have to hit it a little bit harder, might have some inclusion type stuff in it that's a little bit tougher to work around, but overall it's a pretty good rock, and it's going to give you more of a flint-like material to work if you decide that you don't really want to work the volcanic glass. And then also our new Nap Easy product, which is specifically made to help beginner nappers, especially with the shape of the spalls, which we'll talk about, but it's very consistent material. And now we've got some different colors. In fact, we just released the new red jasper as well. So, and then of course the buffalo jump, if you guys been following along, we have that. And then we have some other colors as well. But this stuff is really, really good for beginners, and it's all natural, man-made rock essentially. So there's nothing in it that's going to hurt you. Nothing's going to hurt the environment. It's just how rock is made, how certain types of rock are made. That's how it's made, just in a controlled setting. So it's not hurting anything, and it's a very abundant resource. So we can make a ton of it. You don't have to feel bad about blowing up a whole bunch of premium rock. Now, all that other fancy premium rock stuff that's available out there, don't get so consumed with wanting to work that until you become a proficient napper, because some of those rocks you'll also come to find are a lot more difficult to work, or they're going to have a lot of other issues like fractures or inclusions or something. So, and honestly, stick with the basic rocks until that are more plentiful like these before you go blowing up a whole bunch of beautiful, harder to find sort of stones. Okay, got that. Now let's talk about well, yes, let's go ahead and we'll talk about the shape of rocks and what to expect when you get them. Now, of course, shouldn't really need to talk about the Nap Easy. At least for right now, we're just offering the one size, which is perfect. We will have different sizes in the future. We are working through that. We do actually have some bigger knife spalls available now in limited quantities. But all of these are going to be the same, so that's one of the perks of the Nap Easy is you're going to be essentially working the same piece every time. So it's like playing the same level of a video game over and over and over. Eventually you figure out how to do it, and that's one of the reasons I love that, especially for beginners, but it's great for everybody. Naps wonderfully. But we're talking about natural rocks okay, you're going to see a lot of differences in natural rocks. You're going to have to work some clunky pieces, some thin pieces. That's what flint knapping is, okay? And so the shapes of rocks, it doesn't happen quite as much as it used to, especially I think because we have so many videos now showing different shapes of rocks and how to knap it. But especially before all the YouTube stuff, and even when I was getting into knapping, I'll use myself as an example. I'd order a box of rocks and I would get it, and it would have some stuff in here that's thin like this and really nice, and then it would have some stuff like this. It's got this big ridge down the top, and I would look at this and I would go through it and be like, this one sucks, this one's good, and it'd be like, he just sent me a whole bunch of junk. This is all garbage rock. You can't make anything out of this stuff. And instead of throwing it away, luckily I didn't. I went and threw it all out in the flower bed. And of course I was pretty young. I came to find later that no, that's all really good rock too. I just didn't know how to work it. Now a lot of beginners, you think you want these really thin pieces like this. You're like, oh, this is really close to an arrowhead already. I want all of these. Well, the sad part is they're so thin, especially on these outside edges, you're gonna end up snapping a lot more of this kind of material. If you want perfectly slabbed material, then you want rock that has been cut on a saw and you want to work slabs, but that's not abstract flint knapping. That's not the heart and soul of flint knapping. That's how people make some very beautiful pieces of art, but it's not true flint knapping. True flint knapping is being able to go out into the wild, or at least buy rocks from the wild that are big and clunky like this, and be able to reduce this down into multiple pieces to make multiple arrowheads or knife blades or whatever you want. That's the true soul of flint knapping. And so you will come to learn, I promise, to work pieces that have these high ridges or turtle backs like this one here. Okay, here's another great example. You know, somebody would get this and be like, this is all garbage, you sent garbage rock. Actually, the truth is, I, now knowing everything that I know, if you gave me these two pieces as an option and said, which one do you want? I would choose this one because it's going to give you more meat to work with. And while you can still most definitely get stuff out of this thin material, a lot of these really thin edges, you're going to end up clipping a whole bunch of these off. So really the core piece of rock you're starting with, again, you're going to be making one arrowhead or atlatl point or whatever out of this, and you're going to actually stand a higher chance of snapping this piece completely in half while you're working these thin edges. But that's just all part of flint knapping. You have to learn to work every piece. And then another example here, something like a piece of black obsidian. This stuff works really good. You know, it's got kind of a weird shape to it, but it's a wonderful little arrowhead spall. Like, this is like a perfect little arrowhead spall. But for some reason, people would look at this and be like, well, it's too fat back here. You know, this is junk. You can't work with this. It's like, no, this is good. This is perfect. This is exactly what you want. Same here with this piece of heat-treated Keokuk. They're like, it's way too thick, way too clunky. I can't work with that. Well, that's what we're going to show you in this video, is how to reduce these properly. Once you learn the trick that I'm going to show you, once you learn the trick and I'm going to beat it into your head, you will be able to take rocks like this and reduce them if you follow the simple techniques that I'm going to be teaching you in this video. Okay, so I hope that helps. And like I said, if you're trying to decide which rock is best to start with, all of these are good to work with. The obsidian naps easier. You don't have to hit it as hard as the Keokuk, but obsidian is more brittle, so if you hit it too hard, it is more likely to break. But guess what? It's all part of the learning process, and you are going to break pieces. In fact, turning a lot of good rock into gravel is part of the process. So you just have to accept that going in. Some people learn it really fast, and some people take a little bit longer. All right, one more thing. We're going to talk very quickly about some tools, and then we'll actually get into the techniques of removing some of this material and showing you how to stop turning it into gravel. So then people would ask too, they'll say, well, what about, you know, a flat-topped bopper like this, or a square edge bopper, as opposed to one that's more rounded? Well, here's the deal, is we sell the flat tops for a very good reason, and that is because as you use these over time, this one started off flat and it became rounded. So they will round naturally over time. If you start with one that's already rounded, it's going to start to cone. So you're actually getting less life out of the tool by starting with one that's round. But what you can do is start with your set and you're just working on these edges. These edges are actually more precise. These square edges are more precise. So I really like those. As these start to naturally round, then you get to a point where they're starting to cone a little bit. Then order another set of boppers and start with the square edges. But then if you decide that you need a round topped bopper for some reason, now you've still got one. See? So you're actually shortening the life of the tool by getting one that's rounded to begin with. That's why we use the flat tops. Okay? Now, copper versus antler. Copper is a lot easier to nap with than antler and stone tools. Now, I did it backwards. I was insistent that if I was going to learn to flint knap, I didn't want anything to do with copper. I only wanted to nap with antler, and it took me a very long time to figure out what kind of antler really works best, and then also be able to muscle through a lot of these rocks. Copper tools will help you learn much faster. Then once you've learned the mechanics, then I would say get some antler and you can start experimenting with that. But if you start in reverse like I did, and I wanted to be very pure about it, expect it to take a lot longer to really understand how napping works and how to actually get good points made. So good beginner rock and copper tools are the way to go. And then lastly about the tools, people are like, can't I just use a hammer and a screwdriver? And the answer is, can you remove flakes with it? Yes. Can you really flint knap with it? No, not really. And the reason is that steel, it's too hard and it sends hard shock waves through the rock and you're very likely to break it. You can't take a hammer and really nap with it. Some people maybe kind of can on certain rocks, but overall you want something that's copper, that's got some lead in it for a little extra weight, and that's going to be the best tool. So you're heading into it with the wrong tools, you can expect to get bad results. And then as far as using a screwdriver for a pressure flaker, that hard steel just wants to skate off rocks. It doesn't bite like a copper pressure flaker. A copper pressure flaker kind of bites into the stone, gives you some friction so you can break the stone away, as opposed to like skating off of it or just trying to crush downwards on it. So get the right tools, copper or antler tools. And a hammerstone is even harder. So hopefully that answers some questions for you. Okay, now let's go ahead, pull you down in, and then we'll talk you through busting up a bunch of these different rocks and how to not bust them up and destroy them. All right, here's the point that you've all been waiting for. Like I said, I hope the information leading into it is going to help you a lot moving into this. Okay, now the reason, again, that I want these pieces more like this, and this one's kind of a severe example, and that's why I grabbed it, but you will inevitably have to work stuff like this. You're going to have more meat, and you're going to actually learn more from napping something like this than you would a slab. Now, a lot of people also might say, well, just go get some glass and learn to flint knap, or bust a toilet tank and learn to flint knap. It's like, that's going to teach you how to nap a slab. It's not going to teach you how to nap a rock. And of course, that's another shameless plug for the Nap Easy product, because it's still like a rock, but we'll hit on some of these in a few minutes. But let me show you this. Now, when I sit down with nappers at a nap-in or something, I watch what they're doing. Like beginner nappers, they'll sit down and they'll be like, okay, well, I need to get this off. And so they immediately flip it over and they're trying to drive that off from this side. But all they're doing is driving flakes up it. And the reason is because you can't remove this by just jumping right in and thinking that you're going to knock it off, because your platform, and platforms are very, very important, your platform is on the wrong side. So we talk about this in the Flint Knapper for Beginners video, so you're going to get a lot more in-depth information in that video, but this is the cliff notes on it, okay? Imagine a center line running right down through the middle of this piece, okay? Draw one line, as if you could put a sheet of paper just like this, but all the way down through the center of it. Okay? If you want to remove something on this side of that center line, your platform that you strike from, and the platform that you strike from is the platform where you initiated the hit. So the platform in which you strike from must be, in almost all situations, there are a few exceptions, but almost all situations, the platform in which you strike from must be on the same side of that center line as the piece that you're trying to remove. So if I'm trying to remove this and I am hitting a platform that is on this side of that center line, you are not going to be able to remove this. All you are going to be able to do is essentially draw a straight line like this to the piece that you want. So you're just constantly making the piece shorter and more narrow, but you're never getting any skinnier. That is the real piece of information that you must know about a platform and removing material. Again, if we want to look at this and say, okay, I want to take this big piece off here, and you're like, okay, well then I'm going to hit it over here, it's not going to come off. In fact, what we're going to have to do is come in at an angle, but even this runs is just about at the center line. This one's on this side of the center line. So if you set this down and you're trying to remove this, I'll hit it. It's not going to go. It doesn't want to break. And I see that all the time. See how it doesn't come up and remove it? It just follows the line. Now so the trick is, okay, and I guess I need to make sure that you understand this. This is what I see people do, is then they continue to like, well, it didn't go, so now I'm going to hit it harder. And they hit it harder and hit it harder and hit it harder. And they just keep breaking it. It's not about how hard you hit. In fact, when you have perfectly set up platforms, you shouldn't have to hit very hard at all to run some really nice flakes, okay? So if you are just hitting it harder and harder and harder, you're already going at it with the wrong technique, okay? Setting up your platforms is going to make it easier. Now, this one has a flat spot, and you can't set up, and this one you actually can because it's got a little bit of concavity, so it's kind of a bad example. You can see it's got like a little concavity in it, just a little bit. That gives me just enough platform that I can actually run that across. But you see now how we're able to thin it. We run that all the way across. The reason is because our platform was on the same side as where we were trying to remove material. But if you start off with something that's perfectly flat, let me see if I have an example here. I might not. That was probably the best example that I had. If it doesn't have the proper angle, if it's perfectly flat, then you're not going to have a platform to hit. Like this one here, again, because it's got a little concavity, I have a little bit of room. But if it was perfectly flat, I would have to work out here first. I would have to work on this corner and create a platform. So let's assume that this is perfectly flat and I actually can't hit this. Then I need to create a platform so I can. And so to do that, I would flip the rock over and I would take it off this corner, kind of using like a crude example, create a platform, then I can hit that, okay? Now there's something we call the zigzag technique, and that's talked a lot about in that beginner's video as well. And that's where if you have a flat spot, you're going to have to zigzag back and forth. Now I don't want to get into all that right now. Again, that's for in that video. What I'm trying to really send home to you guys in this video, so I'm going to get back on track with that, is again, always, always, always imagine a center line when you look down the piece. If the piece that you are trying to remove is on this side, the platform that you strike must be also on this side from that imaginary center line. So again, if you are trying to do it from the opposite side, it is simply not going to go. Now, so this right here, we would look at this and say, this is a good platform. I want to hit this and I want to run down into here, right? Yes, that is the idea. Now, all of this stuff, you see like there's like a bunch of little sharp edges and stuff like that on here. By hitting that, it's going to kind of disperse the energy, and you're not going to be able to drive a flake in here very far. And especially because it's got concavity in the whole piece. You can see it doesn't have much, but you see how it's got a little dish? So now if we just line up and hit this here, it's going to run into about here, and it's going to stop because it hits this concavity. And because of that, because I can tell you that this is an easy platform that people want to hit, and they think, okay, this is the platform and I want to send a flake into here, it's not going to work. And because of that, I'm going to do it and then show you how it's going to go, and it's going to stop. It didn't even go far enough. Let me see. But see how I have to hit it harder and harder to get it to go? But it's not running across, it's coming in here and it's stopping. And the reason is because of that concavity. So as I talk about in the FlintKnappers for Beginner video 2, which you'll learn a lot more about that, is I talk about, imagine the whole piece of rock not only having the center line, but being comprised of sheets of paper. And in that I said a flat of paper, and then somebody yelled at me and said it's called a ream. So a ream of paper. Imagine this is a ream of paper. Well, in order to remove the paper that's on the inside, you have to remove paper from the outside. And so think about, if this is all a ream of paper, if you are trying to remove this here, which would be a lower, because it's concave, a piece of paper that's on the inside, you can't remove from here until you remove out here where the paper is out further. So this is the area that you're going to target first. You're always going to look for the high spots, and then we'll flip it over here. It's the same way. You can't come in here and say, I'm going to take something out of here. This has already got a dish into it. If you try to do that, it's just going to stop on you. You're always trying to go for the high spots first. So remember those fundamentals. The high spots must come off first, and sometimes you have to plan a strategy to remove those high spots, and we can talk about that strategy. But remember the fundamentals of, imagine a straight line right down through the center. Then imagine it being a ream of paper. You have to take the high spots, the outside pieces of paper, off first before you get to the inside pieces of paper. And your platform in which you want to remove, whichever side you want to remove the flake from, your platform must also be on that side, and you must have an angle that is appropriate to hit. Okay, so again, there is no angle here. You can see that there's nowhere to hit under here. The platform's up here. So the angle must be in favor of the way that we're going to remove the piece of rock. So this platform is good for this flake removal. In fact, this is a wonderful platform that we will really probably start with first, because it's kind of like one of the furthest ones out, and we have a nice platform. But for some reason, people will have it in their head and say, yeah, but this is the biggest ridge or the highest point, I must take this off first. And so therefore they're, again, breaking the number one rule. They're turning it over and they're trying to take it off from the opposite side of the center line. It 100% will not work. You must remember, center line, the platform must be on the same side as the flake that you want to remove. Okay, so we're going to show you how to do that. Now, a braiding, and a braider is good because it knocks off all these crummy little pieces and it strengthens your platform. So when you're ready to drive a good flake, you should always abrade that a little bit first. Okay, so now you're able to run a nice flake across here. See how I was able to run a nice, really nice flake right across there again? Okay, there's a little bit of concavity here, and that's what made that stop, but that's not a big deal. If you want to thin a piece, your flake must travel at least to center, but really it has to go a little bit past center. If all of your flakes stop at center, your center will not get any thinner, but your sides will get thinner. So you have to be able to run flakes across center, so then this way you're actually thinning the whole center line as well. Okay? So now let's talk about a little bit of strategy, because I always tell folks that flint knapping is like playing a game of chess. You need to be thinking about your moves 5, 6, 7 moves ahead of time. So if you're like, okay, I need to remove this, you're not trying to remove it all at once. Okay? You're trying to strategically remove flakes to develop platforms that will allow you to remove the most problematic areas. So this is going to be a hard spot to remove a lot of flakes from. So we need to plan, and this only comes with experience. Okay, so we need to continue to remove some of these other platforms until we can start developing a platform to remove on this side. Okay, so now this side we've already started here, so let's continue a little bit more. I'll braid it off. I don't need any big flakes right now, but I want to clean it up. There we go. And now I'm actually going to come over from what was the bottom side. I'm going to run a couple flakes over this way and see how I'm going across center. I'm going across center, so I'm actually thinning the entire piece. And I'm going to go back to where I started. And remember, all of my platforms are on the same side that I am removing the rock from. Now, your angles that you work, that's going to take some practice. If you've got too steep of an angle, it's going to take too much of a bite and it's going to dig in and step fracture or hinge. If you have too little of a bite like this, then it's not going to drive a flake very far. It's just going to drive it up to here. So you're going to have to practice a little bit with some of your angles. Now, like I said, you're gonna have to just break a lot of rock, but the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over and over and expect a different result. So if you are hitting it and you are not getting the flake travel that you are looking for, it doesn't mean hit it harder or keep doing it. It means change your angles. Learn to adjust a little bit and say, okay, well, if I had this piece and I hit it, but it didn't travel very far, it just went, maybe an inch, well, then that's likely going to tell you need to put a little bit more bite on it and give yourself a bigger platform. Well, here's the problem. You take something like this thin platform right here and you want to hit it at this angle, well, it's going to do what this one did. It's only going to travel up to about an inch. Well, if you try to crank it back, this is now such a severe angle that it's going to crush the edge and it's not gonna travel the flake. So let's go ahead and hit that and I'll show you. Well, that's a lie. That one actually did kind of go. But let's do it again. Okay, it's obviously a bad example. I'm looking for one here that crushes. Because there we go. You put too big of a bite on it. See how you get too big of a bite? Occasionally you get one that goes. But what it does is it starts to, I'm going to create something so you can see what it looks like. Does this look familiar right here? A lot of people end up doing that because they've got too big of a bite and it comes in and it undercuts and pulls out. Okay? Now, how you fix the angle on this would actually be to come in from the other side and you're going to blunt that. Little choppy flakes. To blunt this platform. Remember we talked about it being so thin and so steep. So that was developing the platform. Then I'm going to braid it off. And then I can drive a nice flake across, okay? So now let's look at this as a much more severe case, all right? So this platform is set up great for removing on this side, except now we're getting to a point where it's undercutting and we're getting step fractures. No big deal. Some of those I was kind of intentionally trying to do to show you that it was the wrong angle. We can still come on this side and fix them as long as we have the right angles. See, if we're already wiping a bunch of them out, makes it look easy. So this side we've kind of cleaned up a little bit. Let's just say that side's pretty good. Now remember, this was like, oh, this is that nasty ugly area that we have to remove. Let's use this one as a great example. Our platforms, if we're looking right down the center of this piece, our platforms are still on this side of the rock. So how do we get our platforms on this side of the rock? Well, you actually have to continue to remove material from this side, but you're not trying to run long flakes. What you're going to do is you're going to actually tilt the rock up. So you're going to take a lot of the pitch out of it, and you're going to use these little short choppy flakes, even on top, even on the platforms that you're saying they're on the, this is where I want to remove. You can tilt the rock up, and even from the top edge, start using these little choppy flakes. And now if you will notice, rewind it if you need to, and I can use a different color rock, and I'll do this all again here in a minute because it might be a little tough for you to see with this. But we had all those platforms that were over on this side. We chopped all of those off and created platforms now on this side. Okay, so now then I can flip the rock around and lay it down, and now I can run flakes on this side. So let me use another, and see how we took that thicker piece and we've really knocked it a lot thinner. Now that one might be a little bit tougher to see, but it was a good example. Let's go back to this one here because it probably intimidated you from the word go. Now we're going to have some loss on this because there's some concavity in here. You're not going to be able to just be like, well, I'm going to make the biggest piece out of this. It's like you're going to get as big of a piece out of this as the rock will allow you to have. First thing I'm going to do is on these edges come in and just start tapping off some of this excess. It's probably going to break anyway. Okay, and now if I'm going to attack this high ridge, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to attack it from this tip because I'm going to have a great platform to try to run a flake all the way up here. But in order to make, which we actually do have a platform that's already started. So remember, if I turn this around, the platform must be on the same side as the flake you want to remove. So actually we have a platform that we could run a flake, but this platform, it's not very strong and it's kind of small, and because it's coming this way, it might actually rob some of the platform that we need to create here to remove this. So if I actually hit this and remove this, it might make it more difficult. So what I want to do, it might make it more difficult to remove this, is what I'm talking about. By just thinking now. This is what I'm talking about, playing chess and getting a strategy. I'm thinking, how do I get this off? And if I hit this here, I'm actually hurting my platform. So I want to develop my platform to be right about here. And that's going to give me a good platform to run across. So how am I going to develop that platform? Well, I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to take little choppy flakes. I'm not trying to remove flakes off this belly side. I am raising the platform and removing material to better, and actually I went so far that I have to, it's got this little concavity, so I got to take a couple off this way. So this is all just preparation in strategy. Okay. Little choppy flakes, getting rid of some material until I've got a platform that I can hit. So now I'm going to braid that off really well. And I want you to look at it here. So this is where we're going to hit, and we're going to hit it from the top and remove flake off of the bottom. But you'll be able to see that now our platform's in a lot straighter of a line, where before it was kind of off to the side. And like I said, if we would have removed that flake, we would have probably nipped the corner off of this platform that we actually need. So we took all those choppy flakes off this side to raise the platform. So now we imagine our center line. Our center line, or our platform that we want to hit, is well on the same side that we are wanting to remove these long flakes. Now we're not going to get it all at once. You can't just go, okay, I'm going to hit it one hard time and it's going to blow it all off perfectly. Nope, but we're going to run in here, and it's probably going to go about halfway or so, but it's going to be, if we get lucky, we might get a little bit further flake travel. Oops, see, that happens too. I got a little end shock on it and I busted that off. That does happen. Mistakes will happen. So I actually drove it with a little bit too much angle. With too much angle trying to get too big of a bite, it curled around, and that's what broke that. Okay, but anyway, we still have a great piece here to work with and explain how to get the rest of this off. So we're going to braid that off. Braiding is very important. And then we're going to keep working this platform. There we go. See how we had this ridge line? Now I can see how I took that ridge off. So that's a really important way to look. Remember, we had to raise that platform, which we did with all those short choppy flakes. Our platform was on the same side as the flake that we wanted to remove, and then we were able to run a nice thinning flake. Okay, so let's work on maybe doing another one. And then we may have to set up another platform. It looks like I might be able to get a little bit more there. Yep, we did. Got another nice one, and might have developed it enough. That might be a stretch for that one. Okay, so now you'd say, well, how are you going to get on this side here? Look how high and steep this is? Well, you're going to approach it from one of these corners. This one's probably the best one. This one's already nipped off a little bit. So we're going to approach it the same exact way that we just did with this one. So I'm going to tilt it up, and you can see, so here's our platform. If this is where we want to take the material from, our platform is on the wrong side of the center line. So we must remove material off of here. I'll try to do it in real time so you can see it. But you see how if I nip this material, it starts to move the center line over. So that's what we're essentially doing by taking these little nipping flakes. See how we moved the platform on that side of the center line. So now I'm going to braid that off to get rid of all that little stuff that's going to break loose and stop our flake from traveling. And now I can run flakes across the top of here. So it's all about, let's see, there we go. So running it all the way, almost all the way completely across. I braid that. Another nice one. Now, I think we can get maybe one more right there, and we have to angle it back a little bit. There we go, perfect. Now you'd say, okay, well, you get this big, thick spot over here. Well, we can go back to our other one now. So remember, instead of we didn't all just work on that one platform, I said, okay, we need to go somewhere else. Well, now that we've developed this, it's exposed these. Remember, now this is an inner piece of paper, if we remember back to the ream. So the outer ream, we have to take those pieces of paper off first. So now that we've exposed those, we can take a few. See, we pop that one off real easy. Pop that one off real easy. And look how nice and thin now we're working this piece down already. It was just that big, thick old piece. Okay, so again, those were the fundamentals. And I'll explain them one more time for you on here. And that is, you must remember, imagine the center line when you look down it. Your platform must be on the same side in which you're trying to remove, and you need to think ahead. So this is why flint knapping is tough, because it takes some thought, and it takes some strategy, and it takes some practice. And if you want to get your points thinner, you must be willing to sacrifice some of your edge to raise the platform so you can drive it across. So again, they'll talk about that quite a bit in that flint knapping for beginners, the how to thin video. Okay, now I'll work through this one here real quick, maybe with a little bit of less explaining, but you can see I really want to get this off. So how am I going to get this off? This is our thickest area, so I'm going to remove some material on this side, raising the platform until I get a platform that I can remove over here. Okay, so I'm going to actually hit this platform and remove some of this, and then probably maybe another hit over here, and then I'll do some choppy flakes until we get up to about here and can develop a platform. So flint knapping, it's all about, you're going to have to sacrifice a little bit of length and width. See, now we've moved the platform, and it's almost to the center line. This is a situation where if you look right down the center of this, of course, if you look down the center of the piece, it would be off to this side, but we want to look almost from the tip to the back and say, where's the center line? And the center line's actually more here. It just looks like it would be further this way because of how far this is. But since this sticks out so far, our center line in reality is really running more about here. So it's not nearly as far over as it may appear. But I'm going to take off just a couple more, and I might get this one out of the way. And then I'm going to braid that off. I did not create a very good platform, but I'll show you how even if you don't have a perfect platform, just understanding the fundamentals of setting up that platform will help you drive flake up and over the top. Okay, so remember, we didn't have it super far over, so we didn't get a huge amount of travel, but we got rid of a big nasty piece off the top of that. Okay, Another trick too, don't, especially working obsidian, don't brush it off with your hand. Have a flap and empty it. Otherwise you're just going to fill your hand with rocks. Okay, now I need to make this platform a little bit better, so I'm actually going to take a little nip out of right there, which is going to develop that platform for me. It's actually got a little bit of a something going on in there, some sort of natural fracture. So I don't know if we're going to get what we're looking for, but I'm actually going to hit it a little bit higher on the platform now. See, we ran another piece kind of up and over the top. So we're thinning it out. Alright, now we'll try to take a pretty good one across here. There we go. Okay. A little more braiding. There we go. Let's see how we're thinning all of this out now. We're rounding it over. See, once you know the trick of the platform, moving the platform on the right side. Now I don't want to continue to hit it here because if you look at our center line, now our platforms are like on the center line. So if you continue to hit it here, you're not going to get this top ridge. If we want to take this top ridge out, then we need to come up from here. Okay, so get rid of some of this stuff. Notice I'm putting a lot of back pitch on that so I can develop the platform. And I see how I move the platform. Remember, the platform was over here. Now it's over here. So we can work on running that ridge line. Okay? It's all about the center line and the platforms. Okay? And then the angles. But those are the fundamentals. So if we took that whole turtleback peak thing right off the top, you see? And we still got a wonderful size piece to make a medium-sized knife blade or a nice spear point or atlatl point. And just a quick little note too, a lot of times folks ask me about where to get the tools and rocks and materials. Huntprimitive.com, we sell all this stuff. We've got it for you. A lot of other places have it too, and they've got some good materials, some different types of tools. You can probably get stuff about anywhere. If you get value from the videos, I appreciate it if you support our business, and if not, that's okay too. And you'll probably also notice that aside from just the normal monetization ads that come with YouTube, we don't run any sponsorships or ads for anything other than Hunt Primitive. So somebody can't just pay me to advertise their product. A lot of other channels do that. I won't really do that. I like to keep it pure right here at Hunt Primitive. And then also folks ask if I have a Patreon or anything like that. I don't do a Patreon. In fact, all we do is we run the business Hunt Primitive. So if you want to support us in some way, and maybe you've got your own tools or materials or whatever, but you still want to support, hey, get a t-shirt, or at the very least, just share the video. Any sort of support at all goes a long way, and I appreciate it. That all being said, let me give you one more example on something like the Knap Easy, okay? The reason that I designed these spalls the way that I did was you'll see that they've got this might be a little easier to see the color on the camera, I'm not sure. They specifically have a ridge, and these, I put platforms on here specifically to train people where to hit. Now, you don't start on these platforms working this way, because remember, if you look down this as the center line, all the platforms are on the wrong side. And this has a natural concave side that you have to work through. So you actually start on these by removing material from the more flat or concave side. So you're going to take some nice little taps, and this stuff, you don't have to hit anything hard. Especially this Knap Easy, it naps super easy. And all you have to do is just lightly tap. If you are swinging hard on really any of this stuff, it's just going to break. It's not about big hard hits. Okay? You have to be firm, but not really swinging hard. Okay, so now what we do is, as you see, I'm working into some of that concavity. By doing that, it raises my platform now on this side. And now you see these ridges that I put in here intentionally. Now, because we raised those platforms, now these ridges act as great little training tools for learning how to remove flakes off the ridges. See? Ran that one all the way up. Ran this one up to here. Now we're going to do the same thing on this side. And these are perfect for making arrowhead size, perfect spalls for making arrowheads or medium size atlatl points. And they've got a little bit of wiggle room for making mistakes for arrowheads. So if you make a mistake, there's still enough material there to keep working. Okay, we took material off, raised our platform, so now our platform is again on the correct side. It's looking down the center line. Our platform's on the same side of what we want to remove this ridge. Oop. There we go. And now I just ran that ridge all the way over the top. So this material you're going to find is going to be very consistent. So you're not going to have, you'll have an occasional small air bubble, but they're usually not a big deal. Maybe a couple occasional little hairline fractures on the top surface, but for the most part, from piece to piece, they are extremely consistent. So it's like you're not really questioning. Sometimes we don't know what's inside, a natural rock until we really get in there. There could be a whole crystal pocket in there. We just wouldn't know until we get in. This stuff, for the most part, is going to be really consistent piece to piece. And again, it's the same spall piece to piece. So it's going to teach you essentially to biface a rock out, as opposed to where somebody's like, well, just go get a toilet tank and break it. Well, that's great, but you're going to have a whole bunch of just flat pieces. It's not teaching you to run any ridges. It's not teaching you how to take a turtle back out, where this comes naturally, comes made with a small turtleback and ridges to teach you how to remove those flakes. Alright, I guess that's it for this one, guys, but remember, the next video that you should be watching is the Flint Knapping for Beginners video, even if you've already watched it, because every time you watch it, you're going to pick up something new from it. That video has helped so many people become proficient nappers. I've got so much good feedback. I am so glad that I put that video together. And remember that I'm watching from afar, and I'm really rooting for you guys. I want you to enjoy napping and become very successful. If there's anything that pops up question-wise in the future that maybe I've not covered or that you haven't found a video for, drop it in the comments. If it's something that I have a video for, I can probably send you a link. And if not, maybe it'll become another video to help you guys out. So that's it for now, and we'll catch you on the next one.